The first signal came from a weather satellite, a brief fluctuation in the upper atmosphere, dismissed as a sensor malfunction. Dr. Elena Santos stared at the readout for the 100th time, her dark eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of her laboratory monitors. Something about the pattern nagged at her consciousness, like a word caught on the tip of her tongue. Dr. Santos, her research assistant Tom, appeared in the doorway of her CDC laboratory. The results from the Singapore cluster just came in. You're going to want to see this. Elena pushed away from her desk, the wheels of her chair squeaking against the polished floor. The Singapore cases had started 3 months ago, 37 people exhibiting unprecedented genetic mutations. The CDC had initially classified it as a novel protein folding disorder. But Elena knew better. She'd seen the patterns in their DNA, changes too precise to be random. The laboratory's main display flickered to life as Tom pulled up the latest data. Strings of genetic code scrolled across the screen, but Elena barely needed to look at them anymore. She'd memorized the signature weeks ago, the distinctive triple helix formations that shouldn't exist in human DNA. It's spreading, Tom said, his voice tight. 200 new cases in the last week alone. And look at this. He'd highlighted a section of the genome. The changes are accelerating. Elena leaned forward, her breath catching. The mutations weren't just spreading. They were evolving, becoming more complex with each new case. It defied everything she knew about genetics and evolution. Species didn't change this quickly, this deliberately. Unless someone, or something, was guiding the process. A soft chime from her computer interrupted her thoughts. Another alert, this time from a hospital in Buenos Aires. Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the report. Her eyes widened as she read. Tom, get me Director Chen on the line. Now. But before Tom could reach the phone, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then plunged the laboratory into darkness. Emergency generators hummed to life seconds later, bathing everything in a dim red glow. What the hell? Tom muttered, moving toward the window. Elena followed his gaze. Across the Atlanta skyline, buildings were going dark, a wave of blackness sweeping across the city like an approaching storm. In the distance, she could hear the growing wail of sirens. Her phone buzzed. A message from her sister in Singapore. Elena's hand shook as she read it. They're here. They've been here all along. The message came with an attachment, a photo taken from her sister's apartment window. Elena's scientific mind tried to rationalize what she was seeing. Crystalline structures emerging from the sides of buildings, growing like transparent veins through the city's infrastructure. But it was the figures moving among them that made her blood run cold, humanoid shapes that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material, their bodies refracting the morning sun into rainbow patterns. Dr. Santos. Tom's voice cracked. Something's happening to my hands. Elena turned. Tom stood transfixed, staring at his palms. Tiny crystals were growing from his skin, catching the emergency lights like diamonds. But instead of panic, his expression was one of wonder. It doesn't hurt, he whispered. It feels right. Elena's mind raced. The genetic changes, the atmospheric anomalies, the growing crystals. They were all connected. Humanity wasn't just being invaded, it was being transformed. Her computer chimed again, this time with an incoming video call. The sender was unlisted, but Elena knew she had to answer. The screen filled with an image that made her step back. A face that looked human but was composed entirely of shifting, translucent crystal. Dr. Elena Santos. The figure spoke, its voice resonating with harmonics that made the air vibrate. We are the Nexari, and you have been chosen to witness the next step in human evolution. Why? Elena demanded, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. Why are you doing this to us? The crystalline being's expression shifted, patterns of light playing across its features. We are not doing this to you, Dr. Santos. We are doing this with you. Your species has something we lost eons ago, the ability to adapt, to change, to become more than the sum of your parts. We simply awakened what was already there. Elena felt a tingling in her fingertips. Looking down, she saw the first glints of crystal beginning to form on her own skin. But unlike Tom, she didn't feel wonder. She felt determination. "You didn't ask our permission," she said, her voice hard. "You didn't give us a choice." The Nexary's expression might have been a smile. It was hard to tell with its ever-shifting features. "Choice is an illusion, Dr. Santos. Evolution doesn't ask permission. It simply is. But if it helps, consider this. We chose humanity because you were the only species we found that could not only survive this change, but thrive in it." Outside, the crystals were spreading faster now, transforming the city into something alien and beautiful. Elena could hear shouting in the streets below, a mix of fear and amazement. Her phone was flooding with reports from around the world. The same transformations happening everywhere, all at once. "Your role is crucial, Dr. Santos," the Nexary continued. "You understand genetics better than most. You will help your people understand what they are becoming. Help them embrace it." Elena looked at Tom, who was now covered in a fine layer of crystal that moved with him like a second skin. He seemed perfectly at ease, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. But Elena knew better. Natural or not, this was still an invasion, and she would make damn sure humanity had a say in its own evolution. "I'll help my people understand," she said carefully, watching as the crystals continued to spread across her hands. "But not for you. For them. Because whatever you think we're becoming, we're still human. And humans don't just accept what they're given. We make it our own." The Nexary's form shimmed, perhaps in amusement or approval. "That, Dr. Santos, is precisely what we're counting on." As the transmission ended, Elena turned to look out over the transforming city. The sun was setting, its light refracting through the crystalline growths to create a spectacular display of color and shadow. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. But beauty wasn't enough. They needed answers, and they needed to understand what they were becoming. She pulled up a blank document on her still-functioning computer and began to type, recording everything she knew about the changes, everything she'd observed. The crystals on her hands clinked softly against the keyboard, a constant reminder of what was at stake. This wasn't just an invasion. It wasn't just evolution. It was humanity's greatest challenge, and perhaps its greatest opportunity, and Elena Santos would make sure they faced it on their own terms. In the streets below, the first signs of organized response were beginning. Military vehicles rolled through the crystal-lined streets, their metal surfaces already showing signs of transformation. Emergency broadcasts blared from surviving speakers, telling people to stay calm, stay inside. But Elena knew it was too late for containment. The change was coming, ready or not. The only question was, what would humanity become? James Chen had spent 15 years in special forces, but nothing had prepared him for this. Standing atop Singapore's Marina Bay sands, his crystalline-enhanced vision could pick out every detail of the chaos unfolding below. The city he'd sworn to protect was transforming, its steel and glass architecture now webbed with living crystal that pulsed with internal light. "Command, this is Sierra One." He spoke into his modified comm unit, trying to ignore how his own crystalline vocal cords made his voice resonate strangely. "The Nexary are concentrating around the financial district. They're not attacking. They're building something." The response came through clearly, despite the electromagnetic interference that had knocked out most conventional communications. "Copy, Sierra One. Can you get closer? We need to understand what they're doing." James flexed his transformed muscles, still amazed at how the crystals had integrated with his human tissue. The changes had hit the military first, and hit them hard. Some units had completely broken down, but others, like his team, had adapted, evolved. Now they were humanity's best hope for understanding and potentially countering the Nexary threat. He launched himself from the building's edge, his crystalline form allowing him to glide through the air with unprecedented control. As he descended toward the financial district, he caught glimpses of other changed humans moving through the streets below. Some were panicking, others seemed to be embracing their transformation. And a few, like him, were trying to maintain order in a world that no longer made sense. The Nexari structure was unlike anything he'd seen before, a towering spire of living crystal that seemed to be growing up from the heart of the city. But it wasn't just growing. It was integrating with the humans who approached it. James, a familiar voice cut through his thoughts. Dr. Elena Santos was hurrying toward him, her own crystalline form glinting in the morning sun. She'd arrived in Singapore 3 days ago, working with the military to understand the changes sweeping through the population. "Doctor," he acknowledged, landing smoothly beside her. "Please tell me you have some good news." Elena's expression was grim but determined. "I've been analyzing the data from the transformed military units. The Nexari didn't just change our bodies. They're changing how we think, how we process information. The crystal structures in our brains are forming new neural pathways." "To what end?" James asked, though he already suspected the answer. "They're trying to network us," Elena explained, her scientific detachment warring with obvious concern. "Connect all of humanity into some kind of crystalline hive mind. But something's going wrong. The human mind. It's not accepting total integration. We're adapting the network, making it our own." A massive tremor shook the ground, interrupting their conversation. The Nexari spire was pulsing more intensely now, sending out waves of energy that made James's crystalline form resonate uncomfortably. "They're forcing the integration," he realized. "That's what this structure is for." Elena nodded grimly. "And if they succeed, humanity as we know it will cease to exist. We'll become part of their collective consciousness, losing our individuality entirely." James touched his comm unit. "Command, we need to take that spire down. Now." But before Command could respond, a new voice echoed in their minds, not through the comm system, but directly into their thoughts. The Nexari were broadcasting to every transformed human in the city. "Why do you resist?" the voice asked, its tone a mixture of curiosity and frustration. "We offer you perfection, unity, an end to the chaos of individual existence." James felt the pull of the collective consciousness, trying to draw him in. But along with it came something else, a connection to other humans, to their fears, their hopes, their determination to remain themselves. "That's what you don't understand," Elena projected back, and James could feel her thoughts resonating with his own. "Our chaos, our individuality. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us strong." The Nexari's response was immediate and overwhelming. The spire pulsed with blinding intensity, and James felt the pulse strengthen, threatening to overwhelm his sense of self. But then something unexpected happened. All around the city, humans were pushing back. Not physically, but mentally, using the very network the Nexari had created to share their strength, their memories, their essential humanity. The crystalline structures throughout Singapore began to change color, shifting from the Nexari's cold blue to a warm, living amber. "They made a mistake," Elena said, her voice filled with wonder. "They gave us the tools to fight back. The crystal network. We're making it our own." James could feel it too. The network transforming, becoming something neither purely human nor purely Nexari. In the financial district, the Great Spire was changing, its original purpose corrupted by the collective will of humanity. "Command," he reported, watching as the transformed humans below began to move with new purpose. "The situation has changed. The Nexari didn't just wake up something in our DNA. They woke up something in our spirit." Elena placed a crystalline hand on his shoulder, and through the contact, he could feel her fierce pride in their species. "Humanity has always been about taking what we're given and making it better," she said, "even if what we're given is an alien invasion." Above them, the Singapore sky was filling with Nexari ships, their crystalline forms reflecting the chaos below. But James wasn't afraid anymore. The aliens had wanted to force human evolution, to remake humanity in their image. Instead, they'd given humans the tools to evolve on their own terms. The battle for Singapore was just beginning, but it would set the pattern for what was to come. Humanity wouldn't just survive this transformation. They would master it, adapt it, make it their own. And the Nexari were about to learn why you should never underestimate humanity's ability to turn a disadvantage into strength. Maya Patel felt the thoughts of 10 million people flowing through her consciousness. From her position in the transformed remains of Mumbai's highest tower, she could sense them all. Every fear, every hope, every small act of resistance against the Nexari influence. The crystal structures that had once been meant to control humanity had become their greatest weapon. The Sydney network is online, she projected, her thoughts reaching Elena Santos on the other side of the world. The scientists' response came instantly, carried through the crystalline network that now spanned continents. That makes 15 major nodes. Elena's thoughts resonated with excitement. The human collective is growing stronger by the hour. How are you handling the input? Maya smiled, her crystalline features catching the morning light. Better than expected. We're learning to filter, to manage the flow. It's like having a conversation in a crowded room. You can focus on individual voices when you need to. The network had evolved far beyond what the Nexari had intended. Instead of a rigid hive mind, humans had developed something more organic, a fluid exchange of thoughts and emotions that preserved individual identity while allowing unprecedented cooperation. A new consciousness brushed against her mind. James Chen, reporting from what remained of Singapore. The Nexari are pulling back. His thoughts carried a mix of triumph and concern. They're consolidating their forces around their primary installation in the Himalayas. Maya extended her awareness, connecting with the other resistance leaders across the globe. Through the network, she could feel humanity organizing, adapting, preparing for what they all knew would be the final confrontation. They're afraid. Elena's thoughts cut through the background chatter. Their own creation is being used against them. But there's something else, something they're not telling us about why they really came here. Maya focused her attention on the Nexari installation. Even at this distance, she could sense the alien presence, cold, crystalline, and increasingly desperate. The transformed humans around the facility reported strange energy readings, patterns that didn't match anything they'd seen before. Dr. Santos, Maya projected, I'm sending you the data from our forward observers. Something's changing in their behavior. It's like they're searching for something. Through the network, Maya felt Elena's consciousness shift as she analyzed the information. The scientist's thoughts sparked with sudden realization. Of course, Elena broadcast. We've been looking at this all wrong. The Nexari didn't come here to conquer us. They came here because they're dying. The revelation rippled through the network, causing a surge of confused emotions from the connected humans. Maya steadied herself against the wave of reactions, maintaining her focus on Elena's stream of consciousness. Their crystalline form, Elena continued, her thoughts razor-sharp with scientific precision. It's perfect, unchanging. And that's their problem. They can't adapt naturally anymore. They needed a species that could, one with the genetic flexibility to incorporate their crystalline technology, while maintaining the ability to evolve. And they found us, James added, his military mind already calculating the strategic implications. But instead of asking for help, they tried to force it, Maya finished. And in doing so, they created exactly what they were looking for, just not in the way they intended. Through the network, Maya could sense the growing understanding among the resistance leaders. The crystalline structures weren't just tools or weapons, they were the key to both species' survival. But only if they could be used correctly. A new presence suddenly pushed against their consciousness. A Nexari communication, more desperate than any they'd felt before. You do not understand what is at stake. The alien thoughts reverberated through the network. Our entire species faces extinction. We need your adaptation ability, your chaos, your imperfection. Without it, We will become like our structures, perfect, unchanging, and ultimately dead. Maya stood, her crystalline form catching the light in ways that would have been impossible just months ago. Through the network, she broadcast her response to both her fellow humans and the Nexari. "Then you should have asked," she projected, letting them feel the full weight of humanity's determination. "We have always been willing to help those in need, but we will not be controlled. We will not be remade in your image." She could feel the other resistance leaders rallying behind her, their thoughts aligning into a unified purpose. The network hummed with potential as millions of transformed humans added their consciousness to the message. "You wanted us to evolve," Maya continued, her thoughts carrying to every connected mind, human and Nexari alike. "Well, we have. But not into what you wanted us to be. We've become something new, something that combines the best of both species, and now you have a choice." Through the network, she could feel Alina and James moving their forces into position, coordinating a global response with an efficiency that would have been impossible before the transformation. "You can continue to fight us," Maya projected, "to try to force your will upon us, or you can do what you should have done from the beginning. Talk to us. Work with us. Let us help you find a way to evolve together." The network fell silent as they waited for the Nexari response. Maya could feel the aliens' internal struggle, their desperation warring with their pride. Finally, a new thought pattern emerged, one that felt different from any previous Nexari communication. Perhaps, the alien consciousness admitted, "We have something to learn from your chaos after all." The sun rose over Mumbai, its light refracting through the crystalline structures in new patterns, patterns that spoke of change, of adaptation, of hope. The war wasn't over, but a new possibility had emerged. Humanity hadn't just survived the Nexari's attempt at forced evolution. They had shown the aliens a new way forward. Through the network, Maya felt the first tentative connections forming between human and Nexari consciousness, not as controller and controlled, but as equals seeking the shared future. The real evolution was just beginning. The Himalayan air was thin at 20,000 feet, but James Chen's crystalline-enhanced body barely noticed. His team moved silently across the snow-covered slope, their transformed bodies blending perfectly with the glittering landscape. Through the network, he could feel Alina and Maya coordinating the global offensive from their respective command centers. Approaching the primary entrance, James projected, his thoughts reaching the resistance leadership instantly. "The Nexari defenses are exactly where our intel suggested." The alien installation rose before them, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to grow directly from the mountain's peak. Unlike the structures in human cities, this one remained purely Nexari, cold, geometric, and utterly alien. Alina's consciousness brushed against his. "Remember, we're not just looking for their control center. We need to access their genetic database. The key to saving both species might be hidden in their research." The plan was audacious. While resistance forces worldwide launched coordinated attacks on Nexari positions, James's team would infiltrate their primary installation. But this wasn't just about military victory. It was about finding a way forward for both species. "Movement ahead," one of his team members projected. Through the network, James could see what she saw. Nexari guards, their crystalline forms more complex than any they'd encountered before. These weren't just soldiers. They were the elite of their species. "They know we're here." Maya's thoughts reached them from Mumbai. "The entire Nexari network is lighting up with activity. Whatever they're protecting in that installation, they're willing to fight to the death for it." James signaled his team forward. Their partially crystalline bodies allowed them to move in ways pure humans never could, scaling the sheer faces of the structure with ease. The Nexari had given them these abilities, thinking to control them. Now those same gifts would be their undoing. Contact. The thought barely registered before the first energy blast illuminated the mountain slope. The Nexari guards had spotted them, their weapons firing beams of concentrated crystal energy. But humanity had learned to master their new forms. James watched as his team responded with perfect coordination, their bodies absorbing and redirecting the energy attacks. Through the network, he could feel similar battles erupting worldwide as the resistance launched their coordinated offensive. James, Alina's thoughts carried urgent undertones. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations from inside the installation. They're activating something. The mountain itself seemed to vibrate as the Nexari facility pulsed with power. James could feel it through his crystalline structure, a resonance that threatened to overwhelm their human consciousness. They're trying to force a complete transformation, Maya projected, her thoughts tinged with alarm. Not just of us, but of all humanity. They're desperate enough to risk everything. James and his team fought their way deeper into the facility, encountering increasingly desperate resistance. Through the network, he could feel the strain on transformed humans worldwide as the Nexari energy pulse grew stronger. We can't let them complete the protocol. Alina's thoughts cut through the chaos. The human mind isn't meant to handle that level of forced evolution. It would destroy everything that makes us human. They reached the central chamber, a vast crystalline space dominated by a pulsing core of pure energy. Nexari scientists worked frantically at control interfaces, their forms shifting with anxiety. Stop! A powerful consciousness slammed into them. The Nexari High Commander, its crystalline form more elaborate than any they'd seen. You don't understand what's at stake. Our species is dying. This is our last chance for survival. Through the network, James felt Alina analyzing the energy readings, Maya coordinating the global resistance, and millions of transformed humans lending their strength. But he also felt something else, an echo of the Nexari's desperation, their genuine fear of extinction. We understand better than you think, James projected, stepping forward. But forcing evolution isn't the answer. You're so focused on survival that you've forgotten how to live. The energy pulse reached a crescendo, threatening to overwhelm their human consciousness. But then something unexpected happened. Through the network, James felt humanity push back, not with force, but with something the Nexari had never expected: empathy. Millions of transformed humans worldwide opened their minds, sharing their experiences, their emotions, their very humanity with the desperate aliens. The Nexari High Commander staggered under the assault, not of weapons, but of feelings, memories, and the chaotic beauty of human existence. This is what you're trying to capture, Maya's thoughts rang out. But you can't take it by force. It has to be given freely. The energy pulse faltered as the Nexari scientists hesitated, their consciousness touched by the human response. Through the network, James could feel the shift in their collective understanding. Your species faces extinction, Alina projected, her scientific mind already working on solutions. But we can help you find a new path, one that doesn't require you to destroy what we are. The High Commander's form shifted, its crystalline structure reflecting the turmoil within. How? Our perfect form is killing us. We need your chaos, your ability to change. Then let us show you how to embrace chaos, James offered, extending both his human hand and his consciousness toward the alien leader. Not as conquerors or conquered, but as equals. The chamber fell silent as humans and Nexari stood at the crossroads of both species' future. The energy core pulsed one final time, then began to dim as the aliens made their choice. Through the network, James felt the ripples of change spreading across the globe. The war wasn't ending with a bang, but with a moment of understanding between two species who had both been trying to survive, each in their own way. In the transformed ruins of Central Park, Alina Santos watched crystal flowers bloom. They grew in impossible patterns, organic and geometric at once, a perfect symbol of what humanity had become. 3 months had passed since the confrontation in the Himalayas, and Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The latest results are promising. She projected through the network, sharing her findings with Maya in Mumbai and James in Singapore. Through their crystalline connection, she could feel their immediate interest, their consciousness focusing on the data she was transmitting. The park had become her primary research facility, where transformed humans and Nexari scientists worked together to understand what they were becoming. The aliens had finally learned to ask rather than demand, and humanity had proved more generous than they'd expected. The genetic integration is stabilizing, Elena continued, examining a holographic display that shimmed between her crystalline fingers. We found a way to maintain the Nexari's crystalline advantages while preserving human adaptability. More importantly, we've identified the key to preventing their genetic stagnation. And the cost. Maya's thoughts carried traces of her constant concern for the human population she protected. What are we giving up to help them? Nothing we weren't already becoming, Elena responded, watching as a group of children played nearby, their partially crystalline forms shifting with their emotions. We're not losing our humanity, we're expanding it, teaching the Nexari how to do the same. Through the network, she felt James's tactical mind analyzing the implications. The Nexari fleet picked up something new at the edge of the solar system, he projected. More crystalline species, drawn by the changes we've achieved. They're watching, waiting to see what we become. Elena moved through the park, passing humans and Nexari working together at various research stations. The aliens had abandoned their plans for forced evolution, instead learning to embrace the controlled chaos that humans had mastered. Their own crystalline forms were already showing signs of change, becoming less rigid, more alive. Let them watch. Maya's thoughts carried a fierce pride. Let them see what happens when you try to force humanity into a mold. We don't break. We adapt. We transform. We make the mold our own. A surge of emotion through the network drew Elena's attention skyward. Above New York, a Nexari ship was descending. But unlike the cold, geometric vessels of their first arrival, this one rippled with organic patterns. It was their first successful hybrid design, created through true cooperation between the species. The High Commander is requesting permission to land, James projected. They're ready to present the final proposal to the United Earth Council. Elena made her way to the landing site, her crystalline form reflecting the afternoon sun. Around her, humans and Nexari gathered to witness what could be the most important moment in both species' history. The ship settled onto the transformed grass with impossible grace. The High Commander emerged, its once purely geometric form now flowing with traces of organic inspiration. Through the network, Elena could feel its consciousness, no longer cold and desperate, but alive with newfound possibility. Dr. Santos, the commander, spoke both verbally and mentally, its thoughts carrying warmth that would have been impossible months ago. Your species continues to surprise us. We came here seeking salvation through domination. Instead, you taught us something we had forgotten countless millennia ago. And what's that? Elena asked, though through the network, she could already feel the answer. That true evolution isn't about becoming perfect. The commander's form shifted, catching the light in ways that merged Nexari precision with human fluidity. It's about remaining adaptable, about embracing change rather than fearing it. The commander gestured, and the ship's hull became transparent, revealing its interior. Inside was a chamber filled with swirling crystal and organic matter, the product of their joint research. We're ready to share this with both our peoples, not as a forced protocol, but as a choice, a way for both species to grow together. Through the network, Elena felt the reactions of millions: hope, fear, excitement, determination. The Nexari had come to Earth looking for a way to save themselves. Instead, they had helped create something entirely new, a future neither species could have achieved alone. We still don't know exactly what we'll become, Elena projected, letting both humans and Nexari feel their certainty. And that's exactly how it should be. Evolution isn't about reaching a final form. It's about never stopping, never becoming too perfect to change. Above them, more ships were appearing in the sky, representatives of other crystalline species, coming to witness what humanity and the Nexari had achieved. But Elena knew they would find no easy answers here, no simple solution to copy. They'll have to find their own way, Maya projected, her thoughts reaching them from across the world. Just like we did. Just like we're still doing, James added, his consciousness carrying the quiet pride of someone who had fought for this future. Elena looked out over the transformed park, where crystal flowers bloomed among natural ones, where children played with abilities their parents hadn't dreamed of, where two species had learned to grow together rather than conquer or submit. The Nexari had intended their protocol to force humanity's evolution. Instead, humanity had shown them a better way. Welcome, she projected to the watching ships above, to the next step in all our evolution. Through the network, she felt the pulse of life, of change, of endless possibility. The future was uncertain, unpredictable, chaotic, and that was exactly what made it beautiful. That was what made it human.